We're going on over half a year, about to round 2/3 of a year on this podcast. And I think it might be time to just simply give you some motivation, get you a little bit more help and mindset as you try to make the switch into a new tech career. Welcome to How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s. It's the podcast where we love to get excited and down to brass tacks, talking about the real things that help you move the needle when you switch from any other career into a high-tech or IT career. And this is where we're going to discuss the real hints, tips, tricks, and the methods and the protocol that help you switch into a real tech career. So welcome. Indeed, welcome. And today, let's talk about a little bit of motivation for you. I just am going to pretend that you're on a call with me and you're wondering how to get started in switching to a tech career. It seems like the people who are already getting going and they're very, very much in control, or they feel like they're making a lot of progress, those are the types of people who may or may not tune into this podcast, and I don't know. Would you let me know? I'm thinking of doing another contest here on this podcast to just find out who my listeners are, because I just don't know. Would you be interested in a contest? Here's the funny part, the meta part of the contest. If you email me, info@techlead.com, TEKLEED.com. If you email me there telling me you would like a contest, you will win the first contest. How about that? The first contest in a long time. I did run a couple earlier in 2024. First contest for the fall, we'll call it, as it's coming up, will be, tell me if you're interested in a contest, and I will send you a prize, some sort of prize. Maybe something that is digital, maybe physical. You're going to have to include your physical mailing address as well. So include that in the email and just tell me, hey, I want a contest. You want to do a contest. And then I will do a contest, including the one of you where you won. You won because you emailed me. So, yep, winners, you must enter to win. You don't have to pay anything to win. So, sounds like a great disclaimer. Last night I was doing my regular academy training. My regular academy training is on Tuesday nights at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. And I thought I'd switch it up a little bit and give other people in my Facebook group a little more opportunity to chime in and to ask questions. And I did have a caller last night who wanted to step through a lot of first steps, and without revealing names or anything, you know, he was going through about a year of not necessarily indecision, but unsuredness, lack of assuredness as to what to do first or next, and stuck in a job he doesn't like. And so I was able to help him. Now, I say I was able to help him because it seemed like the things I told him were helpful to him at the moment. But the real test is whether or not in a few weeks, the things I asked him to do, which I encouraged him to do, will give him help. And that time will tell for that. It seems usually, though, when people are first starting out, trying to get into a tech career, I've been able to help them, and time has told that it has been very helpful for them. But what is it that stops people, and I want to get into this today for the time we have, the short time we have, what stops people from taking steps forward? And I think that the number one thing that stops people is just a fear of making mistakes or investing in the wrong things with your time and money. And so that's pretty similar to a lot of things in life. One example I have is when I needed to repaint my house. I am not a handy person. The people closest to me, including my wife, will tell me that I am not handy. I now recall another episode where I went into how I made myself a little more handy around the house and the hilarity that ensued with my outfit and tool belt, etc. But even after doing that, I don't spend a lot of time, so I'm not becoming an expert at uh, physical things like wood and steel and gears and oil and gas. Mowing my lawn is advanced for me. So when it came time to paint my house, I really didn't know what to do. My wife said, get some paint chips off the house, take it in to the paint store and try to match the paint. Well, I did that and then I got stuck because the paint chips were dirty and they were old, so they couldn't really match it. And I knew I had to do it again. And I don't know, inside of my heart, my heart just folded, sat on a couch somewhere. And that was it. I don't I recall that the feeling was of despair and um defeat. I think that's it. And maybe you felt that way when you were getting into tech is you look at some video and someone's got an attractive video on YouTube and it magnetizes you and you listen to it and you watch it and you take a few notes, and as the person keeps talking, he either offers a huge program or a huge boot camp or offers none of that but just says here's what you need to learn. And even if it's a boot camp, of course you feel like, well, I don't know if I'm ready for that. But even if that person offers you a little bit of help, here's what you need to go do, you still walk away and say, well, who knows? There could be 50 zillion other videos out there which would tell me to do something completely different. How would I know that this is the right thing to do for me? And so that's where I stepped in actually in 2020, kind of stepped out of I kept my programming job, which I got after serving coffee and doing 4 or 5 other jobs at the same time, not full-time jobs, but occupations. That's where I kind of stepped in and started helping people one-on-one and saying, you know what, looking at your background and looking at your current occupation and your interests and your current family situation, it seems like maybe this would be the next step. And just helped people take the next step. And then after a week or 2 weeks or a month, they'd come back and say, here's what I did. What should I do next? And I'd say, here are your options. These things seem good for your personal situation. And so that's how I got into being a strategic advisor for people switching into tech. So you're not crazy if you feel like you're defeated or down or discouraged or just uh, when you think of getting out of your current job, there's a huge cloud of despair and indecision ahead of you. And it's just much easier to just stay where you're at. And that's the truth. It is easier. So let me level with you. Back to my paint chip story. There's a guy named Dan Sullivan that I've never paid a dime to. Okay. But he does offer huge consulting services. And I know that he has a lot of great concepts. And hey, if you want to go check out his stuff and buy it, you should. Actually, I want to correct myself. No, I did pay someone else for a few PDFs. Yes, I did download some PDFs from another person. GTT, Getting Things Done. I downloaded that coach's things. I don't think that was Dan Sullivan. I'm doing this podcast on the fly, friends. So apologize there. But I don't think I've paid Dan Sullivan a dime, but I'll tell you one thing that he gave me from his trainings and podcasts, just like I'm trying to help you right now. I took something away from that helped me with my paint situation. So a little background on my paint situation. Hopefully you're not just skipping to this part of the episode. If you are, you might want to go back and listen to the first part. about the paint chips, but I was stuck and didn't know what to do. And actually, I did know what to do. I just had all this overwhelming emotion telling me I couldn't do it. And I felt like it was just easier to not paint the house that year. I could just wait another year. I've waited all these years, and I could just wait another year. And the truth is that peeling paint on the front of my house would get a little worse, but it wouldn't be horrible. And those are the thoughts that went through my head. And I know that you've probably had a lot of similar thoughts when it comes to switching to tech. The peeling paint on your current career won't get that much worse, but you're realistically not looking at it. You're not thinking, well, what's the purpose of paint? What's the purpose of keeping a house covered and that bare wood covered? Well, it's so the rest of the house doesn't start to rot. It's a huge problem if you don't have paint on a house that needs paint. So back to my situation then. Dan Sullivan gave some sort of idea, and shameless plug, I get nothing for it, but it was just so good. He gave a quick tool or a quick mental map, if you will, to how to get past being stuck. And so I've probably described it one other time on this podcast, or maybe more. But here's what I did. I took his advice from his YouTube channel, and I sat down and I just took a piece of paper, he said, and he said, you've got to, and I'll just describe it to you now as if I'm telling you, I'm just relaying it to you. I took out a piece of paper and I wrote at the top, to Brooks's assistant. And then I wrote the steps that if I had an assistant, because I imagined I had an assistant, which I don't, then what I should do is write on the sheet of paper. If I had an assistant, I would write down the things for the assistant to do. So that's what I did. And the first thing was, let's see, what would the assistant need to do? Get a new paint chip from the front of the house in an obscure area, 1 inch by 1 inch paint chip that doesn't seem faded by the sun as much or as dirty as the first one. Step 2, drive to the paint store, and I put the paint store there, the name. Get sample, a small can of paint. Step 3, drive it back, and in the morning, some morning, scrape a small part of one of the areas on my house that needs paint, scrape a small part of it, and start to paint the house with the small sample paint can. Step 4, wait 2 days to dry and go out there and see if it matches. And ask the wife, ask Jennifer, my wife, and ask Brooks, because remember, this is a list for Brooks's assistant, which again, I don't have. And I think I'm on step 6, but the next step would be, if it matches, go to the paint store and get more. If it doesn't match, take the chip in and ask for a lighter or darker color, according to Jennifer and Brooks. All right. So that was the first thing I did. I took out the paper and listed the things that my assistant would need to do. And I put down the paper, and then I got up from the table. I started to step away, and then I looked at the sheet of paper, and I said, well, I don't have an assistant yet, so why don't I just start doing this? And I took the sheet of paper, and I went out and got a new paint chip off of the house, and I started doing the steps. See, I already knew, and that's exactly the formula that Dan Sullivan gave on his YouTube. I think it was pretty much on his YouTube channel. When I did that, I took action. It seems crazy, but I think you know what you need to do. I think you know that you have some videos out there that you need to watch, and they're not going to be perfect for what you're going to transition into a tech job. They're not going to be aligned exactly with what you like. And some will, some won't. And I think you know that one of the steps you could take is to go to Barnes& Noble or Amazon.com. And I would suggest a physical bookstore, by the way. It's much easier to sit and leaf through physical books to find out if this is interesting to you or doable in some way. And you know that you could just get a book. And if you don't have money for a book, you can go to YouTube. You can download free resources. You know you can do that. And so those are some of the things that you should list on the paper for the assistant. And then you step away. That's a physical thing. You physically step away from the paper, and then you look at it and you say, I don't have an assistant yet. I might as well just take care of some of these things. And then you can do them. So it's a mind hack or a mind map. It's how to take the things in your mind and shape them in a way that produces action. You will not switch into a tech career by sitting around and watching people get into tech careers. You will not get on the coattails even of your best friend or your closest relative or your spouse who got into a tech career. You will not get into a tech career by just being close to them. There are skills you need, and you may already have the skills. You just need to transfer them or map them over to a tech career, more specific type of role. And that's where I also have helped a lot of people, and I only know my experience, and I know that when I've talked to over 300 people in the last couple of years, that these people who are trying to switch to a tech career have a lot of skills already, even if they don't think they do. When you try to get into a tech career, you have to get your first job. To get your first job, you have to be able to know some of the skills that are required or some of the requirements. They're not always skills. Some of them are having completed this or that. You know you can go to Indeed.com and search for tech jobs, even if it's not the most perfect search. You might leave out some parameters and search parameters that you should be putting in, and you don't know that yet. And that is completely fine. And also, you know that the longer you wait to change your career, the worse things will get. The more rain is going to get into the wood of the house, so to speak. Or possibly literally, if you're in a house and you don't have the money to paint it because you don't have a career that pays you enough, the same thing will happen with your physical house. So in order to stop the cycle of defeat and discouragement and questions, you need to find some answers and just start moving forward, because I think you already have the answers to what should I do next. Now, if you have been looking up things online, if you have been reading books, if you have been doing some projects, if you have been doing online courses at Coursera or Simply Learn, if you have ordered products even from myself, if you've ordered a product from me on my website, from one of my Facebook ads, or you've joined my group or academy and you're listening to this and you're still stuck, that's where you may need some personal attention and someone to say, look, this is obvious to me after knowing you, but there's no way you could figure this out by searching the internet. Even ChatGPT, unless you can transfer your personality to ChatGPT, only another human being who knows people and knows personalities could interpret what you need to do next and what's really stopping you. So ChatGPT right now and other AI programs that give advice are sort of like the attorneys right now. And what I mean by that is you can pay an attorney to tell you what you want. You probably will not pay an attorney to tell you something that you don't want, because you might not be paying the attorney anymore after that. So you may need more of a coach, someone who's going to be a little rough and tough in a nice way. Okay. So if you need help with that, of course, I'm here. You know my email address. I've said it so many times. And reach out and see if you need help. If you just need a free resource, I also have those. So hopefully this has been encouraging to you, not too harsh, but also giving you some practical hints as to how to move forward and get off the couch, just like my heart has been on a couch so many times. Even this morning, I woke up and I knew some of the things I had to do with my business and even with my current programming job. And I think, I don't know, maybe I should just watch TV, watch Netflix. And that's a constant, um, that's a constant struggle for people in general. So you're not unique. Just how can we take some action and keep moving forward and do it in such a way that creates a flywheel effect? And you look back and you realize, I don't know how I got into a tech job, but it was a process and I did it and I didn't have to go back to college or wait years. That's what we're going for. I hope this has been helpful and I hope you have a great rest of your day. How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s is the podcast that tries to help you switch into a tech career, no matter what your background is, give you some support and some encouragement along the way. Now, if you're stuck and you need some help, give me an email at info@techlead.com, info@tekleed.com, all spelled wrong. And if you're looking for a Facebook group to get involved in or anything else, you can look at the show notes and we got some info down there. Until next time, my name is Brooks Haynes and I've been your host today, and I thank you for listening. From the shores of the Vermilion River in southeastern Minnesota, have a good day.